I've been sick with the flu this past week, and I've spent a lot of time staring into the cavernous abyss that is my phone. As minute after agonizingly slow minute passed me by, I began to wonder, how can I be sure that my phone is showing me the right time? I mean, what's stopping it from making a minute a little longer every once in a while? Even if time is a construct, how can I be sure that it is, at the very least, consistently upheld?
Don't worry about her, that's just the existential dread setting in. As it turns out, the answer is really interesting.
If we dig down deep into a computer, we'll find a motherboard, a hefty circuit board that ties together components like the CPU and RAM. In order to function properly, the motherboard has to have some way to coordinate the transfer of signals between all of its components. So behold, arguably the single most important component in any computer, the grand conductor of the CPU symphony, the beautiful, majestic— wow, it's so small. Yeah, that's it, the tiny silver capsule-looking thing with a number on it. It's called a crystal oscillator, and it forms the backbone of how computers tell time. As the name suggests, there is an actual crystal inside each crystal oscillator, usually quartz. Quartz is piezoelectric. That means that when pressure is applied to it, a tiny, tiny amount of electricity is generated. The same actually happens in the opposite direction. If you make electricity flow through a crystal, it'll vibrate the slightest bit. It's like the electron supplied by the battery is trying to fight its way through a super tight crowd. As it makes its way through, it causes the structure of the whole crowd to shift.
What's really cool about the way a crystal shakes is that it's consistent. If you hook up the crystal to a battery, which starts the flow of electrons through the material, it will always vibrate at the exact same frequency. A specific type of integrated circuit called a real-time clock is built to interpret those vibrations. It outputs a clock signal which coordinates the processes throughout the entire motherboard. Different crystal oscillators can vibrate at different frequencies depending on how the crystals inside were cut, but each individual oscillator has a fixed frequency. Now that we know how computers keep time deep inside their motherboards, how exactly does that correspond to keeping the time consistent with all other devices?
All computers that need to keep their clocks accurate, like your phone, follow the Network Time Protocol, often abbreviated NTP. Under this protocol, computers connect to servers, as they do to get most of their information. These servers, or sometimes servers connected to those servers, get their time directly from standardized clocks around the world that are universally accepted as being the right time. The time that's considered correct globally is called UTC, which stands for Universal Time Coordinated.
It is based on the quantum resonance of a cesium atom, which is admittedly a little bit more complicated than observing the resonance of a quartz crystal, but the same underlying principle applies. We observe a physical property of a material that we know to be consistent, and we base our time on that. In the case of NTP, there are a few servers in between the real-time clock and your computer, but it all comes back down to watching tiny things shake around. Once your computer receives data from a server telling it what UTC is, it makes its crystal oscillator line up with the standard time so that your device can always show you the right time.